Hello YouTube, I'm back to talk about Pokemon Sword and Shield yet again. Yes, we've had some very interesting news regarding Pokemon Sword and Shield that I wanted to talk about in the video, so I decided, I don't have a script ready, I've just got a list of talking points, so this is going to be a completely unscripted vlogish video, so I hope you guys can stand that as I give my opinions on this latest bit of news, but let's recap my opinions on Sword and Shield before we get to that. My experience with Sword and Shield was kind of okay-ish. I beat the base game in 18 to 20 hours, that's what it says in my notes here. That's going through all of the storyline quests up until the final battle with Hop at the end of the post-game storyline when you finally get the box legendary at the end there. No, I did not rush through the main story. There are some people who think that I rushed through it because I got through it in only 20 hours. No, not really. I built a very specific team that I wanted to make and used the Pokemon that I wanted to use. I sought them out and got them, so that took a little bit, and it wasn't really a competitively viable team. I know there are people who have made competitively viable teams for the main story and blitzed through it that way. And it really shouldn't matter how much time it took me anyways, in my opinion, because if you blitz through the game, then clearly the game must be very easy to blitz through. Like, what are you doing when you're not clearing the main storyline? Are you grinding raids to make it easier to blitz through the main story? Yeah. I know it's possible that players would spend a lot of time catching Pokemon and doing, like, the multiplayer stuff, because there are raids, there's competitive battling. I didn't really do any of that. I mean, you have Pokemon Showdown if you want to play competitively, so that's something. But I did spend like 10 more hours after completing the game filling out the Pokédex because I just wanted to see if it was like super easy to do, and I got bored and stopped when I had 200 Pokemon caught. So yeah, there's that too. So now that you know my opinions on Pokemon Sword and Shield, that it's basically like, it's another Pokemon game, whatever. Not 2 months after the game came out, they announced DLC expansions were coming. So yeah, 2 months, less than 2 months. Like, the announcement was just a couple days ago, and the worldwide release of Sword and Shield was November 15th. Yeah, the longevity of Sword and Shield ran out rather quickly, didn't it? Wow. You know, I don't really pay attention to DLC announcements, but that feels like so very fast. I mean, I bet there are other games that announce DLC even faster. There are games with day one DLC, so this is like... Alright, so let's talk about what the DLC announced is. There's one coming out in June, and another in fall, which I guess means November 2020, so something like that. Each DLC expansion will add new areas, new battle modes, and new Pokemon, new Gigantamax forms and such. And they will also add 100 old Pokemon that weren't previously seen in Sword and Shield, so yeah. And the price of admission is $15 for each of them, I think. Like, people have been saying that it's like $30 for the whole package. And yeah, $30, half the price of the base game for all of the DLC that they've announced? Yeah, what are they doing? I don't know what they're doing here. It's only been 2 months and you're announcing this, like, straight away? What are you guys doing? Like, yeah, and the fact that they're adding like 200 total old Pokemon that previously weren't in Sword and Shield, like, didn't they say that they wouldn't happen? Like, they wouldn't add more of the old Pokemon in the DLC or something? Now, I do want to say, like, I don't want to misrepresent this news. They have said that you can trade or transfer the returning Pokemon through, like, Home and stuff. You can use Pokemon Home to transfer in the old Pokemon to get them that way. Or you can trade with somebody who did buy the DLC and caught the Pokemon. The DLC are needed to catch the Pokemon, not to trade them over. So, what was all of that about not being able to add the previous Pokemon through a patch later? So, yeah, someone has to buy the DLC in order for everyone to get the Pokemon, so I thoroughly anticipate someone, like, getting the DLC and capturing all of the Pokemon, and then, like, breeding them a lot. And then, like, sending them out through surprise trades or whatever. So, yeah, you can get all of those new Pokemon without ever having to touch the DLC, which I don't really know what the point of the new areas and stuff is then. I mean, there could be great new content there, but after the base game's kind of lackluster content, I don't really think that they have a great track record, so I'm not really interested in this DLC stuff. I mean, like, based on the list on Cerebi, like, there's a list of returning Pokemon, and one of the DLCs, like, has a long list of returning legendaries. So this could be them just adding in a bunch of areas with legendaries to capture. And if that's true, then, like, just looking at Omega Ruby, that had a lot of ways for hunting old legendaries. Like, why is capturing, like, the old legendaries something that you pay for? I mean, it's not like DLC is this horrendous crime or anything, but, like, a $60 base game that only kept me in for 30 hours, and now you want $30 more for an expansion that's probably not going to add as much? I mean, like, I'm assuming a lot here, but this is all based on my experience with the base game. The base game was just very underwhelming, and you're asking for more money already. It hasn't even been 2 months, and you're already asking us to put down more money. It's not like the DLCs are out, but they are coming in June and November. And, you know, this just feels like you had all of this planned. It feels like somebody had all of this planned in advance. Like, okay, we're going to release a DLC on this date, and we're going to have the base game on this date. And, you know, all of the content that maybe could have been in the base game, we're just going to, like, cut that out and put it in a DLC. It feels like they're doing, like, something that EA would do. And, you know, again, I'm not interested in the blame game. I'm not interested in, like, pinning this on the Pokemon Company or Game Freak in particular. But this is just, it just feels like such an EA move. It feels like a Bethesda move. It feels like something that, like, companies with a much worse reputation would be expected to do. But because Game Freak has a much better reputation than EA and Bethesda, you know, it feels like they can get away with it because, like, there are a lot of loyal fans for Game Freak still. And another thing is, if you buy this DLC, you're just getting it for one of the two versions, so you have to pay extra in order to get it on both versions. And, you know, I don't think buying both versions is a thing people are doing, like, en masse nowadays, but there are people who buy both versions, and this is going to affect them pretty hard if they want the DLC for all of it. And another thing is, I've heard people say that this is better than just getting a third version, like Emerald or Platinum. I disagree with that because, well, first of all, the last time this happened was like 2008 or something. Like, Black and White 2 are different enough from the original Black and White that they are basically different games, I would say. I have opinions on Black and White 2, but that's irrelevant right now. And then Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which were probably different enough. I skipped them completely because I wasn't interested in, like, paying for an upgrade. But, like, if you bought Ruby and then Emerald, for instance, that's a total of $80 because I'm pretty sure they costed $40 back then. But you could, if you wanted to, you could trade in Ruby. Like, GameStop was a thing by this point, right? So you could sell Ruby or give it away or something and then just have Emerald. But with DLC, you have to buy the base game and the DLC. There's no skipping the base game because you need the base game to get to the DLC. So that's $90 that you're paying for Sword and Shield plus the DLC. So that's more than the $80 the two cartridges you would have bought, I guess, costed, and you cannot sell one of them, or get rid of one of them, or give them away. You can't do anything with it. That's the thing about DLC. You have to buy the base game to get to it. Unless, of course, they come out with some kind of definitive Game of the Year edition in a couple of years, which could happen. I mean, it happened with all of Bethesda's games, and it happened with a bunch of other games that are actually on my wall right now, like Dragon Age Origins, Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition, things like that. All of this just feels really nickel and dimey to me, because not only are you paying for the base game and the DLC, you're paying for the online too. So even if you want to trade with somebody else to get all of those Pokemon, you're still paying for that online. And I know that's not the same thing, because when you pay for Switch Online, you're getting online for every game with online in it. But Pokemon Online right now is not so good from what I've heard. Like, I have no experience with it because I choose not to play online because I'm just not interested. If I want online, I go on Showdown. And I don't go on Showdown. Hey, speaking of Showdown, isn't this going to, cause the Smogon people to, lose their heads? Because when I checked on Showdown, they had, a ton of different formats for battling online. Like, they had Gen 8 OU, Gen 8 OU with the National Dex, Gen 8 OU without the National Dex, Gen 8 Doubles OU, Gen 8 Doubles... Yeah, this... this is gonna get so weird, because now they have to account for the DLC, too? Wow! Wow. Yeah, it just feels like that they've abandoned the fan base at large and now only care about the loyal players that they can siphon cash out of whenever they want. People are... there's a serious Game Freak defense force on the internet right now, and I don't know why. You're letting Game Freak get away with this kind of thing when Bethesda and EA, we get angry about it, but there are still people who let them get away with it, so I don't know what I'm saying here. And they didn't need to nickel and dime us like this in the past. You might have thought it was weird to have a third version come out, but the remakes never got third versions. X and Y never got third versions. Black and White got full-blown sequels, which... Again, I have opinions on that, but I'll save that for another video. They didn't have to do this kind of thing in the past and still be successful. They're making billions because this is the most successful media franchise on the planet. They don't need to... They don't need to nickel and dime the player base. I don't know what they're doing. And I recently found out about a similar situation that was handled far better from the people involved. You remember No Man's Sky? How that was the most disappointing release ever? I don't have a horse in that race because I never played No Man's Sky. But I checked in on how the No Man's Sky situation was doing, because it turns out that Hello Games kept working on it, long after the initial release. They could have just taken the money and ran, but instead... They kept patching the game with more content and more bug fixes, and now it seems, from what I've heard, that it's actually kind of a stable and playable game. So, mad props to Sean Murray and co. for actually, fixing the problems people had. I mean, I know, that it was still lame of them to release the game in that state and then patch it later, even 3 years after the fact. But... the fact remains that they still worked on it and never charged more money for the... they never made their patches into DLC or anything. They never added microtransactions or anything, so, even if you were mad about the game as it launched, it's still kind of honorable for them to continue working on the game and release all of that content for no extra money. It's crazy that they'll do that, but the big corporations, because Hello Games isn't really a big AAA developer, but the big AAA developers that have the resources to do that and then some, they don't do that. They continue siphoning money. I don't really know why they need to do that. I think it just has to do with the fact that they can siphon all of that money and treat the customers like cows instead of people. So they should, in their minds. In their minds, they have to. Because growing even more and making all of that money, like, just look at all of the Western companies that are trying to get into the Chinese market for some reason, even though that's a huge risk. Like, you want all of that money, don't you? You want all of that money. And the money is like the money's the end goal now. It's very skeptical of me to think of it that way, but that's honestly how I'm starting to think of it right now. They just keep doing all of this money grubbing stuff, and it's not pleasant, you know, watching all of your childhood franchises go that route. I mean, Pokemon is still not on the level of Fallout 76, but they're constantly inching towards it, and I don't honestly like feel all that great about it. It's really kind of painful to watch, honestly, but I'm just sitting back and watching, to be honest. I'm playing all of the classic games again. I'm playing all of these old games that don't have any of that nickel and dimey DLC stuff, and they're still fantastic. You can still enjoy them for hundreds of hours, so, like, I don't know. That's all I gotta say on the subject. This was probably, like, way disjointed and disorganized, but, you know, I hope it was worth hearing my thoughts. I just felt like getting my thoughts out there, so, yeah, who knows what I'll do on the channel next. I'll still have to think about that for a little while, I guess, but, you know, for people who did buy Sword and Shield and are looking forward to the DLC, you know, I hope you get enjoyment out of it somehow. I'm just sitting here remembering a time when, you know, we got more for less. Well, I'll see ya in whatever video I decide to do next.